Thank you very much.
Thank you. Glenda, hello. Welcome.
Hi, how are you? Good. How you doing?
Cheers for catching up for another chat.
Yes.
So welcome everybody else who's listening. Thanks for joining us again. We are going to have a discussion this time about blockages that come from largely your unconscious mind and from past experiences and things like that. This has come up because I actually called you and said, can we have a discussion around this? Because I've felt this myself over the last week or so with my own personal finances and with our business, mainly around finances. But for me, in my past, that's the biggest thing that I've been having to get over and deal with is things that I've learned around finances. And I guess the point here is that I am well aware of the things I've learned in the past. I'm well aware of the negative impacts that can have on what I achieve. But still, they still come up and they rear their head a bit, and you still get those feelings and you still question things sometimes. And we're just going to have a discussion around why and how to deal with it and that kind of stuff. So I called you up this morning and we had a bit of a chat about it because I've been feeling that that just questioning what we can achieve. We've got to the point where we're making some money in our business, and it's growing in the way it needs to be growing for us to be able to do what we're doing long term. So it's all happening as it should be happening, and I know what we're going to achieve. I know what it can be. I know how many people we can reach, and how big it's going to be. And we've got massive plans, and I know that's all 100% possible, and that's what we're working towards. But still this week I've had this feeling where I'm just questioning, is this actually, and, what's going to happen to kind of slow it down or hold it where it is, or, and there's no evidence at all that anything needs to happen.
No, that's right. But, for the sake of having a blockage, you just need to look at our family history. And that's what your mind is taking as the evidence. And, in our family, people made ends meet financially just.
Yep.
But there was never any excess, and we never saw anybody step outside of the what was normal for our family, which was you go and you work, a minimum wage job. And, if anything extra comes up, then you're in strife.
Yeah.
We haven't seen the evidence of someone in our family doing the kind of thing that we're doing now, building the sort of thing that we're building right now. We've probably seen, well, that's it. Yeah. We've
generations,
probably,
so I don't think of anybody.
No, we might have seen people outside of our family, but it's almost like, well, maybe they have some kind of, secret recipe that we're not aware of. But in our family, no, people have always just worked a job, and the mum stayed home, and nobody ever stepped outside their lane for even a moment. And for us, directly with our parents, our mum was sick, so finances were even more of an issue because she couldn't work. And obviously there were a lot of extra medical expenses and things tied in with that your average family wouldn't have had. So and like you say, it's generational.
It's interesting that you just mentioned about other people and how they might have had a secret recipe. What they did. And that's actually totally true. But the difference is we know that secret recipe now, but our family has never known it. They've never known how to step out and do something different. But we do.
I guess the thing for us too is like we need to see for ourselves over the long term that the cake that we're making is going to be a glorious cake and not a complete fail.
Exactly.
So we've
Yep.
you know, we've got the recipe, but we haven't pulled the cake out of the oven yet. So so to speak. Yeah, and that's where that questioning and the doubt can come in.
Yeah, we're still looking for the door, waiting for it to rise.
Yeah.
See if it's actually going to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting because we know, like, all the evidence right from the start of this business has been that it's doing what it needs to do. It's a process, and it's numbers, and it's growth, and it's getting our message to as many people as we can. And, you know, as that happens, we then get the opportunity to help more people that want to help.
Yes.
And it's proving to be working, but like you say, we haven't got that. No one really that we can look at that's personal to us.
Yeah.
That can actually say, well, you know.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
And that's come from the kind of background that we've had and achieved what we want to achieve. We haven't seen that. So, and I guess, you know, the direction the conversation went, and the thing that I think is really important here is that it's actually completely normal
100%,
to have these feelings and, you know, to not be on top of the world all the time. You know, there are circumstances as well as our subconscious playing into it, because for you with that particular thing, there isn't really a circumstance to support those feelings. And sometimes you will just get them because you have that blockage and you've just got to work it through. But sometimes too, our circumstances will throw things in our path that are going to cause us to have you know, negative feelings or things that we feel are, you know, not beneficial or even wrong. Sometimes we judge ourselves in that way.
On the contrary, it's all going the right way, and I'm financially in the best position I've ever been in my life, and everything's going the opposite, and I still get that creep in and still have to dig it out and challenge it and deal with it. And I guess that's a big part of where we're going, is to allow that and to dig it out and to question it. The tendency in society in general, I think, is to bury things that come up. And I think a big part of our message here is to the analogy you use, to turn the light on and have a look at it. Instead of turning the light off and putting your head under the pillow.
That's exactly right. It is the monster in the room. And until you expose it and, like you say, you turn the light on and actually look at what it is, it stays a monster. But when you turn the light on and you see that it's just a fan with a blanket draped over it in the corner of your room, then it changes. It changes everything. It changes the shape and the feeling and all those aspects. And so what would you, I suppose another point I want to make is that for me, this has come up this week and it's been a financial thing. There's been other things going on in my life at the moment that are abnormal as well, which are not a problem in any way or anything like that, but they've just changed things slightly for me. And I think all other things, other aspects weigh into it as well. But how would you suggest people actually confront those things? And it can be in any area of their life as well. It's not just finances. That's what I'm getting at, I suppose, is you have these beliefs in every area of your life. Some more prevalent than others for different people. For me, it was ringing you up saying, can we have a chat about this? And that's how I've turned the light on and had a look at it. You know, because I can think about it in my own mind, but to have someone else to challenge and point out things that I hadn't thought of and whatever is obviously a really good way of doing it. But there's other ways as well on your own. Yeah. I think probably first I just would say something that we need to be aware of in, societally at the moment. We either tend to, you have to push down the negative feelings and be positive all the time.
Yep.
And pretend like life is going, rosy. And I think we've seen an increase in that kind of attitude, especially, with the rise of social media and people portraying their lives as so much perfection all the time. And also with people's levels of busyness, if someone says, oh, how are you going? They just want to hear, yeah, I'm good. And that's it. They're not really chasing how you really are. And that's just, people are busy and living their lives. Or if you're the flip side and you acknowledge, difficulties and negative feelings out loud, then you tend to be labelled as a whinger. That's right. You just like to complain about everything. That's right. Yeah. Or we've got to avoid that person because they do nothing but bring us all down. So I think there's a balance to be found. I think if you openly discuss and mull over and dwell on, negative things that happen all the time, then you are going to get to that point where you just see more and more negative things.
Bring you down. Yeah.
And you're going to bring yourself down. And, when you're down, obviously it's just that much easier to see negative stuff. But we don't want to hit that fake positivity either, where everything's always sunshine and lollipops, because that's not real either. And for you, it was great because you talked to me, so it's just basically like having a coaching session, having somebody with an outside view who can remind you of things or point things out. But if you're feeling some negative stuff for whatever reason, sometimes just saying it out loud can be helpful. You don't even have to be saying it to somebody other than yourself. And a way of saying things out loud too, I guess, is writing.
I was just going to say another way to do that. I think a good way is writing it down as well.
Writing stuff down. And that's, that was the process I went through with growing Glenda, was that I had all this, baggage, loads and loads of baggage from growing up with a sick parent, and Dad had some, mental issues, and, I had little brother and sister who I was always trying to care for and worried about, and, just so much baggage. And then when Mum passed away, even that simple act of, being told that she was going to die soon from when I was 6. And I was getting close to 40 when she passed away. That's a long time to be expecting death. And for it not to come, so, there's all that sort of baggage. And then, dealing with the fact that it actually finally happened was a level of shock. So I started writing, and then I quickly went, well, maybe my story can help somebody else. So, but to be honest, just that process of writing out the stories of things that happened and how I felt was almost like hearing somebody else's story and being able to see it with fresh eyes.
It helps you wrap your own mind around things.
And see it with adult eyes too, because most of those beliefs and feelings and all that were formed around a child's understanding of what was happening. And so getting it out of my head and out of my body, so to speak, and putting it onto paper, I was able to look at it again through the eyes of an adult, to expose those monsters as not being the monsters that I thought they were.
Yep.
Yeah, and obviously with growing Glenda, I'm talking about a big issue, a whole lifetime of built up beliefs. But like things that are going on in your everyday life currently can bring up things that maybe little things or things that don't affect you normally, but they just come up. So for me that's a really, really important one, is being able to write.
Yep.
In this day and age too, people can record, they could talk and record.
Listen back, yeah.
Go and have coffee with a friend. The people listening to this in our membership have access to us for coaching, so that's another avenue.
Yes, it is.
But just bringing it out into the open is really, really the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, anything that can help you see it from a slightly different angle, to see it more for what it is and for the reasons, to actually understand and bring to your conscious awareness why you've even got that in the first place, where it's come from. And then I suppose there's a few questions you can ask yourself around that as well to help to dispel the beliefs. Like, what's the evidence that it's factual, and think of some evidence, and then think of some evidence why it's not factual, why it's not an actual belief that matters. Is there any examples of it being fact and not being fact in either yourself or other people or anything like that? And just, you only need to find one good reason why it's not necessarily a fact.
Yeah.
And that's enough to make it not real for you. Like, it doesn't have to matter to you.
Yes. Yeah. Well, just like, when we were discussing about how you're feeling, you were feeling some, unsureness around our business, and, whether it's, it could just be like other things that you've done in the past. And, I was able to point out or ask the questions of, well, how is what we're doing now different? How is what you're doing now different to what you've done in the past?
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
We, working with someone not alone is different.
Yeah.
And the way we work is completely different to how you've ever done anything in the past.
Yep.
What we're doing is completely different to anything you've done in the past.
My reasons and motivations are completely different to everything I've done in the past.
Yeah, that's right. And if what you're doing is different, then you will get a different outcome.
Yeah.
No question. Right. It's just the flip side to saying to someone, well, if you keep doing the same actions, you will keep getting the same results.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And, previously you've had certain actions that have gotten you certain results. So what you've done is change things up, and you're taking completely different action.
Yep.
And getting different results.
Exactly. So you can do that. You can do that in any area of your life, like any kind of belief you've got. Just look at how this is different from your past experiences, from what you've seen in the past.
Yes.
And just know that if you're doing things differently, you're contributing to a different result.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I just want to feel like the really important point here is that, exposing how you feel is key.
Yep.
It's key to change, because, once you look at what the feelings are and you acknowledge them instead of trying to push them down, then you can start to question why you're feeling that way.
Yep.
And then once you start to get a bit of an answer to why you're feeling that way and you dig that little bit deeper into what it's about, then you're actually exposing the belief behind the feeling.
Yep.
And then once you can see what that belief behind the feeling is, then you can apply what you're saying about questioning.
Yep.
And looking at it from a different angle. Where has that belief come from? And is it actually relevant to my life now?
Yeah. Yep.
Because it may have been in the past.
Yeah.
It may have been 100% relevant to you in the past. And it may have been a belief that, you know, maybe even kept you safe or secure. But it's no longer relevant. Like, you know, when you're 4 or 3, you need to hold someone's hand when you cross a road.
Yeah.
It keeps you safe. So you're taught, you know, for a lot of kids, not everybody, but for a lot of kids, you're taught you must hold the hand of an adult to be safe. And you know that's what you need to do. But guess what? Now that you're 40,
you can.
Is that belief relevant, or do you think, you know, you can be responsible to cross a road without having to hold the hand of an adult? You might want to hold someone's hand, but you know, that you know, so that belief that you have to hold someone's hand kept you safe and secure, but it's no longer relevant.
Yeah, and that's the case with a lot of them. Like a lot of them have been there for a good reason. Yeah. And you just need to be aware of that and be aware that, you know, while it serves you at one point in life, things are different now, you're different now, you're in a different place now.
Yes.
And then a lot of them later in life don't serve you in a good way.
Yeah.
You need to move on and change beliefs to match where you're at.
Yeah. And if anything, a lot of them hold you back.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you're trying to stay safe and secure, but you can't grow in that place.
I talk a fair bit about the comfort zones that your beliefs give you.
Yes.
Like, and for me, like, I can see a real comfort zone there is financially is, you know, having enough, knowing that I've got enough to do what I need to do, pay the bills, to have dinner, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then it's completely new for me to go beyond that. Like anything beyond that, you know, to any kind of access is completely new territory. It's not something that I've ever known or experienced or seen in any way.
Yes.
It's completely uncharted waters.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that takes me right out of my comfort zone.
And well, it does, because
what I want to be financially
all kind of responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, you're expected to behave like an adult, or you know, you need to know where to invest your money or what to do with your money and what's responsible and what's not responsible. There's all this things that come along with having something you've never had before.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And even as far as the responsibility, like of working with other people, like I'm coaching people and they're getting great results. I'm getting great feedback. People are saying, wow, like, yeah, everything's changed for me, you know, and I'm getting same thing. I'm getting really good. Everything's going the way it should be.
Yes.
But it's still, you know, still uncharted territory. You know, how many people can you take on, and how much can we help people, to what extent, and you know, the time it takes to do it, and all that stuff all plays into it. It's all uncharted territory, which all leads to that questioning, you know.
Yeah. Which makes it scary, pushes you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And then your subconscious kicks into action to try and protect you and keep you within that zone where it knows it's safe.
And the thing is, if you're aware of that, you're aware that that's what's happening, then you just say, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm doing what needs to be done to push beyond that comfort zone.
Yeah.
And no doubt over a little bit of time, you will go beyond that comfort zone and will reach a new level. And then it'll be the same case all over again.
Yeah, well, that's it. Your borders and boundaries do stretch,
but
then there's still borders and boundaries there. Yep. That need to be re-stretched. But that's the thing. You can't change the feeling without addressing the underlying beliefs.
Yeah, definitely.
And I guess that's the real crux of what we're saying, is that you have to acknowledge the feelings. Otherwise, you never look any deeper than them. You can't just say to yourself, I shouldn't feel this way.
Yeah.
I should be better than this.
Because
if you just brush it off, that's right. If you brush it off and don't acknowledge that you do feel that way, then you don't give yourself the chance to dig into it and go, what's the belief behind? You know, what's the belief that's making me feel the way I feel right now? Because once you've dug into that belief, you can really question it.
Yeah. That feeling is like the indicator that the thermostat has flicked off on the heater and the room's starting to cool down again.
Yes.
You know, it's just that prompting that, all right, there's an edge of a comfort zone.
Yep.
The thermostat, which is your unconscious mind, flicks off to keep the room, keep you in a certain comfort zone, certain temperature level. And when you're aware, you can flick it back on and keep pushing through and keep warming the room up. Like,
you know what it makes me think of actually is doggy zapping collars.
Boundary, yep.
Yeah, you set a boundary, you put the collar on the dog, and they get zapped by that boundary a few times.
Yep.
You know, which if you relate back to, say, the hand-holding things, you get in trouble for mum a few times because you almost run on the road without holding someone's hand. You learn that boundary. You know, the dog knows that's the boundary, and then after a little while, the collar comes off, the boundary goes down.
Yep, the dog still has
the dog always stays inside that boundary.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and that's what we're doing. We've learned a boundary often in childhood, not always. Sometimes later we can learn them too. You know, we might learn a boundary in a relationship, or you know, at work, or you know, like you say, with finances, because something, you know, bad happens and we hit a challenge, but we learn that boundary and then we don't push past it.
Yeah.
Because we think we're going to get zapped. So it's then acknowledging that that boundary that was relevant then is not necessarily relevant anymore. So like you might move to a different house with the dog and they only had, you know, 100 square feet before, and now they've got 500 square feet.
Yep.
They've got to extend themselves into that new, that new boundary.
Yep. Good analogy. Yeah. So I guess in summary, what we're saying there is to don't push it down, but acknowledge what those feelings are.
Yeah.
And why they're there. You know that they're there because you've likely reached an edge of a comfort zone.
Yeah.
And then dig into why that's a comfort zone. Dig into questioning.
Yes.
You know, why that's a thing.
Yeah.
Why is that where you're comfortable? You know, and what reasons are there to tell you that you can go beyond that?
Well, the wild thing is too, sometimes when you know, and I know going through that process, like I said, with growing Glenda, and that after, you know, that few years after mum passed away, was that some of these beliefs, when you dig in and find out what they are, or you find out what the cause is of that boundary being where it is, it's actually laughable. Like you look at it and you just laugh and go, why was I still going with that? Like, it's actually crazy. And some things obviously are deeper and serious, and we're like, oh yeah, I can see why I'm still applying that, but it's holding me back. So but some things you can pull them up and just instantly, just recognizing what the belief is enough for you to ditch it completely.
And it's because unconsciously that's what you've learned from an experience. And so it's there. It's neurologically wired in your brain, and you need to physically undo that wiring, the pattern there that you unconsciously run. And you do that just by questioning and just by changing your mind. By questioning and seeing it slightly differently, you actually change the neural connections in your brain that make you think that way unconsciously. So the process actually physically makes changes that changes things. And some things need to be revisited. They'll keep coming up, and you keep revisiting, you keep questioning, you keep challenging it. And it just gets a bit weaker and weaker each time until you get enough evidence to know that you've moved beyond that. And then you can go, well, okay, well, that obviously isn't actually true. And then, you'll probably come across the next boundary. But, it's just that process of growth.
And I suppose it's probably similar to, we do a lot of trail walking and stuff, and some trails, that are heavily used are really easy to follow. And sometimes you come across a trail that's someone's bashed in, it's a new trail, or, not used often, and it's harder to identify. It's almost like you've got to dig that groove in. And I think when rewiring your brain, it's about, I think there's a degree of repetition and coming back and re-questioning the old belief and reminding yourself why you're applying the new one, and that re-application of certain behaviours that start to really form that pathway. It's not always going to be just an instant, or I'll see that and now I'm new. I've got a new pathway, or I'm doing something differently. It takes repetition.
Same as everything, isn't it? It's all a process of continual. Continual.
Especially the deep, really deep-seated stuff that sometimes we're clinging on to. Really, it does take being addressed. Repeatedly, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you haven't learnt the lesson. It just means that you need to acknowledge it again.
And that's the whole thing of what we're doing is just about continuously following the process. Like I talk to people all the time, and they're really struggling with things, and I'm like, I wish I could just give you a quick solution that would make you feel good. But it's just a continuous process that you have to do, continually pulling yourself up, recognizing what your thought patterns are, and continually getting back towards the right track. And you're going to keep getting off the track, and you just got to keep getting back towards the track. And it's all a process. Nothing is going to happen overnight.
No. And there's going to be diversions, and you're going to have good days, and you're going to have not so good days, and each time you do have a not so good day or something comes up, you just pull it out again, turn the light on again so you can see what it is and examine it.
But you notice each time you do that and you get back towards the right track, it gets a bit better every time.
The
next time's a bit better than the last time, until
gets
eventually
easier.
It's not there.
That's right.
So,
and it gets easier, I think, sometimes just because if you've taken the time one time to really examine that belief, the next time it comes up, you know what's behind it. So you don't necessarily have to do as much work to get to that point. You just pull it out and go, I know you, my old friend or enemy or whatever. And just look at him and remind yourself what the limits are of that kind of thinking, and shake yourself off, and like you say, point yourself back in a better direction.
So keep going, keep questioning, keep working, just recognize those boundaries and question them, and keep pushing forward. Making sure you keep doing the actions that need to be taken to get you where you want to go, regardless of the feeling, regardless of how you feel. I think that's an important point as well, is know the feeling for what it is, question it, all that stuff that we just spoke about, and then make sure you still take the actions that keep going in the right direction. I think that's another important way of just showing your unconscious mind that this is now what's happening now. That's no longer fact, is by following through anyway, because the tendency is to start self-sabotaging and start doing things that are going to be detrimental to what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Because of that thermostat comfort zone effect.
Yeah.
But, just go, all right, this is how I feel. I'm still going to take the actions necessary.
That's probably a really good time to go back and revisit, whether you just look at what you've already done or do it again. But that's a really great time to revisit that why, that exercise of really looking at why you're doing things that are different to how you've done them before, or why you're stepping out of that comfort zone, because you need to turn the light on to see what the monster in the room actually is, and then you need to address it, and that suggests action. Like you're saying, there are actions still, so then you take whatever action you need to step back in the direction that you want to be going. And if those feelings and things are overwhelming, or they make you feel like you're gonna pause or start looking backwards or start reverting to old behaviors, dig out that list. Why are you doing things differently to help motivate you to continue on that path of change?
That's important, because that gives you the motivation to do the action even though you don't feel like it. Isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And not slip back into the old behaviors and habits.
Yep, that's right. You have those feelings, you tend to will not want to do the actions. And that's you unconsciously trying to hold you back. But you revisit the why are we doing what we're doing, and then that helps give you the motivation to do the actions anyway, even though you don't feel like it, even though you feel scared at the time, or you don't think there's a point or whatever, because you're questioning things. Take the action.
Well, the coaching business is a great example that we started this conversation with. You've had those feelings, you've reached out and said, can we have a discussion? We've looked at what they are, we've re-looked at what the belief behind it is. And so you're at the point now where you either say, oh, but I'm not feeling good, so how am I going to be able to help the people that I'm coaching? So then you're bringing the wrong kind of attitude or feeling to those coaching calls, which is not helping. So you can take that downward spiral, or you can say, all right, I've seen it for what it is, but I know this business is amazing. I know how many people I'm helping. I'm really grateful for the fact that I get that opportunity, and bam, go into your next call with that feeling of gratitude and knowing that all of us, every single one of us, are on a journey of growth.
Yeah, no matter where you are.
We're just at different levels and different points in our lives and dealing with different circumstances. So that's the action that you talk of now. You've washed that off, you've shaken it off, so to speak, and now we just hit the ground running and use that,
make a podcast
exactly, to push in action. And that's right, we've gone, here's the thing, let's address this, because this is something that everybody faces.
Definitely.
So
cool. Have you got anything else you want to?
No, I think we've pretty well addressed that. So
cool. All right. Well, I think
awesome.
I think that's a pretty good discussion. That's relevant to everybody. Definitely relevant to everybody at certain times. In different areas. And I think that's a good one. And just to show that no matter how much work you put in and whatever, it's going to be a continuous thing for the rest of your life, as long as you're trying to achieve something. No matter how small it is, it's going to be an issue that comes up.
Well, that's it. And even when you break your boundaries, you step outside of your comfort zone, then there's new boundaries and new zones
it's always going to be a thing.
that you need to learn through and to be able to push outside of them.
Very good. All right.
Excellent. I think we should end that there. And
thanks for listening, everybody.
Say goodbye.
Enjoy. All right. No worries. Cheers, Linda.
All right. Thanks for that. You have a good day.
Cheers, listeners. Hope you all have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. See ya.